from year 11, and I've organized this panel discussion for you guys today. It's essentially to give you an idea about what working in STEM and science industries are like, and in particular, talking about the issues that girls and women face in these industries. Although, of course, there'll be a lot of useful information and interesting discussion that anyone can take away from. So, before we begin, let me just say that I've organized this panel discussion not just because it's a good event to have, but also I just want to let you guys know that there's also going to be a concert that this is leading up to on the 7th of February to raise funds for the Women's Foundation, Girls and Women in STEM Initiatives, STEM being science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, subjects that I know a lot of you guys will be quite interested in. So I've been working with the Women's Foundation for a couple months now with CEL, Community Engagement in Learning and Living, a student-run organization made up of your classmates, 10 people from year 8 to year 11. So without further ado, let's start the panel discussion. But first, let's have the panelists introduce themselves.
Hi, good afternoon.
My name is Dr. Sharon Chan. I'm currently head of Asia for a non-profit biotech company that's run by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. My background is I have an undergraduate degree in molecular and cellular biochemistry, followed by a PhD in cardiovascular medicine. I've also worked in biotech and in pharmaceuticals, and I've I've also worked in London, Shanghai, and Beijing. Thank you.
Hi everybody, I'm Leonie Valentine, so I'm the local managing director for Google here in Hong Kong. My background, I'm a STEM student. I graduated geology. It's really useful. A very long time ago. And I did a Master of Arts in Communication Management after that, and then I started a doctorate in Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and then realised that I was actually pregnant with my first child, so that one's on hold at the moment. But in terms of, I'm looking forward to the discussion today in terms of talking about STEM, because basically I love the whole idea of science, technology, engineering, maths, but also creativity, innovation, arts. So there's a huge number of intersections I think that we can actually talk about today. So very happy to be here. Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Maisie and I'm Chief of Staff at Telstra International. Telstra is an Australian telco company. I've been in telco and technology for the last 18 years, but didn't intend to actually be in this industry, also be in this industry for that long. My background is actually, I did an honours degree in Australian women's history, so that's very niche. And then I did a postgraduate museum management, and then a little bit further down the track to give my academic background a bit of credibility. I have an MBA as well. But certainly I'm really delighted to spend some time chatting with my fellow panelists here and also with you, because I certainly didn't come through the tech industry in what I think a conventional path, but I think what Leonie says is I think there's multiple disciplines that would absolutely benefit the tech industry.
So the first question, we've mentioned how there is a disparity between men and women in the STEM industries, and how some women, and how many women actually, have difficulties entering and staying in the STEM fields. What, in your experience, has this disparity actually looked like? Would you like to start this, Dr. Chan?
Sure. So when I was at university, I studied chemistry, and I only lasted 8 weeks in chemistry. I came from an all-girls school. I started chemistry, and I think there were probably 90% male and 10% female at that time. And there was a lot of pressure, and I was in new surroundings, a new environment, a new culture. So, you know, I then made a decision, and I made a very fast decision, which was I still really loved chemistry, but to actually switch over to biochemistry. And then that was kind of a bit more evened out, with 30% female and 70% male. But then actually, having then gone through university, in terms of disparity, I would actually say my experience work-wise has been actually very positive, at least in the last decade. So companies that I've worked for now and in the past have now embraced diversity, and there are many initiatives to get women more on board at various different levels and to promote them, to go for equal pay and to give them just as much opportunities as one would get if one was male.
I think the experience that I had when we were talking about this before was quite different, because I joke that my father raised 3 boys and I'm the 3rd one. So when I grew up, my dad was very present in the way that I actually was raised, and we spent a lot of time out exploring the world. We would hike, you know, with mum as well. We would explore nature. He was very passionate about both arts, museums, science. He's actually a doctor. My mother was one of the first computer operators at Hong Kong Shanghai Bank here. She worked her way up from being a secretary as a year 10 leaver to doing a 10-year career in the bank and eventually operating one of the first mainframes here in Hong Kong. So she's the maths buff. My dad's the natural history buff. And between them, we just, all 3 of us, my brothers and I, always had the same experiences. So when I went to university, you know, I'd done the girls' school for 4 years. I had 2 years co-ed as I was leaving school. And then went into university, and I actually didn't really notice that much that it was so male-dominated. Same thing at the time that I went into geology, probably about 33% of the class was female, the rest was male. I was telling the team that earlier, last year I met a skiing instructor who was Australian in Japan, and she's studying geology today under a scholarship, because today in Australia only 16% of the class for geology are women. So over the last 30 years, the number of women entering these subjects has drastically gone down. It's actually gone down by half, from 33% to 16%. And there's a number of factors for that. Some of it is actually about choice. So there are far more choices for individuals to make when they're actually leaving school. Which science, do you want to do science? Do you want to do marketing? Do you want to do law? Whatever it is. Some of it is parental pressure. Particularly in Hong Kong, for local Hong Kong students, we know that the parental pressure is to do law, do medicine, or learn how to manage money. Right? I'm sure people are already hearing this. And they're valid choices. But, you know, for my industry, yeah, you can do that, but you could do other things as well. So I think, you know, part of it is then also the peer group. So the other thing that I know from research is that, particularly for girls, if they want to go into something like coding, unless they've actually been in a computer club at high school, it's going to be very difficult for them when they get into university. And this was my experience. So I actually went into a senior mathematics class at university, and I didn't have a computer when I was, you find it funny, I'm that old. I didn't have a computer in high school. So I sat in this math class, and everybody else turned their computers on and started. And I said, I don't know how to turn it on. Kind of ironic for the MD of Google. But, and that was the thing, I just hadn't had the right sort of exposure. I hadn't been to a school that actually embraced a lot of those subjects. I think through sheer will and determination, I decided to go down that particular path. But like you, I ended up dropping out of that particular subject because I just couldn't keep up. By the time I was 18, 19, it was too late. I should have had some of those experiences in either primary school and then secondary school to just get me the right kind of confidence that I was able to keep up with the rest of the class. So I think, you know, some of the messages that I actually send to our younger Googlers and when I'm out talking to students, it's very much a lesson in resilience for anyone. When you get faced with some of these sorts of challenges, if you're really determined to do it, then you just kind of have to keep going. But same as you, I've experienced that. I just want to drop out of this one because I don't think it's right for me right now.
I think the big themes for me when I reflect upon how I sort of stumbled into IT and technology was around relevance, or really the lack of relevance. So I actually went to a very academic girls' school back in Sydney, and maths and science, physics and so on were actually very actively encouraged. And I did maths, but I actually didn't do any science subjects because I didn't see the relevance of how I would take that beyond school. And that was a theme that carried through when I went through university, and I thought I'd go down this very academic route, do heritage management, museum management. And it was purely by accident, backpacking, going through Europe at the time, UK, and showing my age as well. When I was travelling at the time, there was no internet. You had to sort of work things out. There was no Google. The first job that I actually got, I know, I was just actual physical maths. But my first job when I landed in London was, I was hired by a small consultancy, and I remember the interview process. It was quite a rigorous interview process. I was the only girl out of 20 guys there, and I got through, and the job was basically testing software on large integration systems. And my first job was actually then to move into live in Bern in Switzerland, working on a project with Swiss Telecom. But once I got into the industry, I was hooked because I could see the relevance of all this technology and what that meant for me. But the disparity in terms of the observations of me as a female and my colleagues who were very overwhelmingly male has persisted quite through most of my career. But I think the very positive thing is, and certainly with my current organisation as well, Telstra, there is a lot of awareness, policies, and also very active engagement from male senior leaders as well in the industry on how do we retain that interest throughout the pipeline. And let's talk about a leaky pipeline as well.
So that's quite interesting how now more and more companies are seeing the importance of women in their companies and the importance of diversity. So how did your companies that you've had experience with actually encourage women to go into STEM or to go into their company? You've talked a lot about the different types of policies or different involvement in the workplace community, but how does that actually look like from your perspective?
Do you want me to go down this way?
Yeah.
I'll go down this way then. I think when I think about the policies that Telstra, and I work for Telstra, this is my third year coming to Telstra, and I do have to say, the previous companies I worked for, so I worked for Vodafone, I worked for Three, both in Australia and the UK, and I've worked for different mobile startups in Germany, in the Netherlands as well. They've got policies around 5 key areas. One is attracting and recruiting graduates from STEM subjects into the organisation, and also specifically encouraging females as well. The second piece is, once we do have a female talent on board, is how do we retain, develop, mentor and support them as well. And it's something that certainly we can be better at, and there's talk now about actually moving from mentoring to sponsorship, because it's through active sponsorship that you can really see talent, whether it's male or female, but also female talent moving through the pipeline. The third piece is how do we develop that culture of diversity and inclusion as well. So not just bring people on board, but how do they feel welcome and that they can actively contribute in the environment, and that's actually a very safe environment for them to do so. So there's quite a few policies certainly about helping women when they come back from maternity leave. How can we be flexible in working arrangements to allow them to still have a very fulfilling career, but have that moderated or have that flex according to their personal or their family needs. The fourth piece is, I've touched on this, is really having the male role models and leaders in the organisations playing a very active part. So you may have heard of the Male Champions of Change back in Australia, where you have CEOs in Australian companies playing a very active role there, a very visible role. And I'd say the fifth piece is, it's something that is probably more my experience having been in the Hong Kong office. I'd be really keen to hear your thoughts as well, Leonie, is a local cultural lens as well. So it's really interesting. So Telstra is really still overwhelmingly an Australian company. It does have offices in 8 or so different countries around the world, but it's very still we recognise an Australia out view. So some of the policies that we have, we actually recognise didn't work that well in Hong Kong. So for example, flexible working. Actually, a lot of people prefer to come into work in Hong Kong because potentially their apartments aren't that big, and it's a great opportunity for them to have their own space. So little things like that, we've actually realised that there's no cookie cutter approach. We have to, look at cultural context as well.
So on the question of how do we actively get people onto these subjects, I think it's really interesting. I mean, everyone knows the history of Google, right? 18 years ago, Larry and Sergey started a company in a garage, and the garage is actually owned by a woman who's still in the company, the head of YouTube, Susan. And they actually started with a piece of paper and a founder's letter that said, we want to make the sort of company that we would want to work in. We want to make a company that is completely inclusive and diverse and actually represents all the people in the world that we want to serve. So they started out as basically 3 people, the 2 founders and the garage owner, actually wanting to make a difference in the world. So it's a very interesting company. It's a company that started without knowing how to make money. So that was never the principle. They were PhD students that wanted to organise the world's information and make it universally usable, accessible. Pretty simple. So then when the company started to grow, so from 2 people it's now 69,000 employees globally, 18 years later, and X number of billions of dollars in revenue. But we've never lost sight of that lens of wanting to make a company where everybody feels free to bring their whole self to work. So however you identify. So you might be the archetypical, if you watch Silicon Valley, has anyone ever seen that comedy show? The archetypical kind of coding nerd, one of my favourite shows, I love it. But we also in Google, we have groups for transgender coders. So we have groups for men who are going through transition to women, and we actually have a support group for that as well because we want those people to feel 100% comfortable coming to the office. We have groups for Asian Americans in the US that actually basically, again, they might be facing particular challenges on speaking up because culturally they've come from a very different place. And when they go to the Silicon Valley, they're finding that their voices aren't that well heard, but they're wanting to represent the groups around the products that they want to build. Then we have groups as well, obviously, for women. I'm the deputy head of Women at APAC for Google. We do things like the Male Champions of Change as well. And what we're trying to do is actually get the guys involved in that conversation as well, so that they can sometimes put themselves in somebody else's shoes. So, for example, I used to work at Telstra as well, and recently the ex-CEO of Telstra, David Cody, published an article through LinkedIn. It was a CIO magazine article. And many years earlier, he'd been called on stage to stand next to a woman who was, I think, from Polynesian descent. And this woman called out what the diversity characteristics were and actually asked David, who's a 6-foot-tall white man, what challenges he had faced in his career to get where he was. And he couldn't think of a single challenge. And this woman who was from a Polynesian background actually talked about the challenges that she faced at every turn in her career. And he commented over LinkedIn that it was a pivotal moment in his career when he realised that why he needed to actually do something about diversity and inclusion. Because I think one of the things that you don't realise, and I had this experience as I was moving up in companies and becoming more senior, I wasn't looking around the room and thinking, hang on a second, where did all the women go? And I was actually reminded of that once at a conference in 2006 in Australia for Telstra. I was standing in a room full of chief information officers. There was probably 30 people in the room, and my American colleague turned to me and said, Leonie, don't you find this bizarre? And I went, what? He said, you're the only woman here. I went, how did I miss that? I didn't know where everybody had gone, and it actually piqued the curiosity in me to find out what actually happens to women in the mid-career, how they drop out of things like tech and telco and others. On the point of how we get more people to be interested in this, it starts at primary school. So Google, through our foundations, through the donations we make, including the work we do with the Women's Foundation, we start in primary schools. We've got our own course called CS First, which is actually based on Scratch. So we teach kids in primary school how to scratch code. In secondary school, we have Google for secondary students. We pipeline, so we actually go out and target the brightest and the best students in secondary schools in places like Australia. And then we track them through university to see whether we can get as many of those students as possible into the world. So we're very, very keen on making sure that we have this diversity and inclusion lens, but it's a multi-year, almost decade by decade journey, and we know as an 18-year-old company that we actually need to start now to get the generation in 10 years and the generation 10 years after that, because otherwise what I'll have is an empty pipeline. And today, let me tell you, everyone here, I can't hire enough people for the jobs I have open in Hong Kong. There are simply not enough girls and boys, either one, with digital marketing, digital technology, coding, or any of those skills. You know, these are all very high-paying jobs that can take you anywhere in the world. Little advertisement, right? We need more people in Hong Kong that are interested to actually make a difference to the rest of the world through things like technology. There you go. That ends my ad.
I think there were some great points there. So I think I can share two perspectives here from two different companies. So I think it also very much depends on the organisation. So my first example is with my current organisation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Now, as it is by itself, the Gates Foundation stands for every life is equal. So whatever we do in global health, whether it's in polio, tuberculosis, malaria, AIDS, HIV, every life is equal, no matter where you are. And that as a starting ground already then basically filters into your own company identity and your own office culture in terms of how diversity plays out. So in terms of when I look around the office and I think about which backgrounds people have, yes, people did do chemistry, yes, people did study physics, but in terms of the availability and diversity and breadth of actually what they're doing today in their job and how they're applying that science degree, it's actually gone a long way. So, you know, embracing, for example, laser technology to knock out mosquitoes to prevent malaria or to find a cure for AIDS. I mean, you could have studied chemistry to do that, but that doesn't mean you're pouring two solutions and over a Bunsen burner. So I think there's a long, long, long way to go with that. So that's the point about having an organisation that's embracing this culture already. My second example is with my previous company where I worked for a global biopharmaceutical company called Baxter. This is a multi-global organisation and it had offices from India, 48 countries around the world, but I was focused on Asia Pacific. Now for Asia Pacific, we had 13 offices from India to New Zealand. And just like that, overnight, the head of Asia Pacific decided we are going to overnight implement a policy and we're going to have more women positions in top management. So it was a top-down message from the CEO saying we want 50-50 in all management positions. And then countries like Thailand, the Philippines, Singapore, headquarters in Shanghai and the China office, you know, everybody basically then had to switch. And what we did first was we had to do a lot of mapping. We had to identify everybody, male or female, we had to identify their capabilities, their talent, and then we actually tracked them. So high performers, male and female, were rewarded. But we also basically, by measuring and actually then quantifying and following this for over a 3-year period, we could then basically then get to the point where 5 years later, you can then say, yes, in these senior leadership positions, we do have a good representation of women as well as male, and everybody has got to the position because they deserve to be there. And then once you've got that in place, it then almost becomes natural. So now, let's say 10 years on since this has happened, it's a given whenever you go into one of these senior leadership team meetings in any of these Asia Pacific countries, you would be expected to be greeted by a well-balanced, diverse leadership team.
Okay, thank you so much. So I think the main takeaways from that question is mostly, first of all, that the tech companies and science companies, as they're still growing, they're always ready to hire more people, as we talked about with Google. So all of you are actually have a standing chance at going into these industries. So don't discount the industries. But second of all, there's been a trend with companies and industries actually pushing for more inclusion and pushing for more women to go into their industries. So if you're a girl who wants to go into STEM industries, don't feel disheartened because there are companies that are actively looking for you. So very quickly, before we zoom out and look at STEM in general,